Okay, it's time to cover the tassel form. So let's take a look here. Here's our tassel form. I'm going to be using this little one that I made right here, which is basically a candle cup and a large bead, a little bit larger than this one, put together like that. And then I took some creative paper clay and filled in right here and up top. There's just a drinking straw down in there. And once I had that formed, let it dry, of course, sand it nice and smooth, and then painted it. So you just have to be a little creative with some of these. I'm going to use this one. I've got my white GIMP, which I explained on the supplies video, how to obtain this kind of GIMP. Okay. I have my warped threads, my threads from my ruff, and my wire. But for now, let's just cover the form. I have my clear gel tacky glue, which I'll dispense into just a small container. Don't need a whole lot. Okay, paper towel, paintbrush. Again, I don't like to use the spray adhesive. I find that it gets too tacky, too quick for me, and it's messy. I have used it in the past, but it's just not my preference. All right, so let's find the end of our GIMP. We're going to make it nice and clean. And just put some glue down in the hole and around the top. I love this clear gel tacky glue. I use it for all kinds of things. I'm also an egg artist and a dog artist. And when I bead eggs, B-E-A-D, I use the clear gel tacky glue to put the beads on. I find it's a wonderful invention. Okay, I'm going to just put a little bit of the GIMP down into the hole to make it clean. Now, this first round with the GIMP is the most important. We want this one to be nice and smooth and even, because it's going to set the stage for the rest of the rolls around the tassel form. So take a little bit of time to make sure that that's a nice round shape. This is a thick GIMP, so it's going to want to have a mind of its own at first, but we'll get it to do what we want it to. So we're going to make that nice and even. Keep rolling. Again, I don't use this GIMP in my designer tassels all that much. People seem to like it because it was, you know, they've seen it on commercial tassels, or it's in a popular book. But I find that it's hard to match the exact color or the exact style that I want. I tend to do things like, you'll see here, you can't really see this one up close, but this is actually underneath. It's pearl cotton that's been braided and then laid down in the same method that we're doing. And of course, this is an overlay. We'll talk more about that in embellishments. So I've got the beginning, and I am going to just keep putting glue on. You don't want too much. It is clear. It will dry clear, but it also will be visible. If you slop too much on there and it starts to seep out the sides, you'll be able to see a shiny little kind of plastic looking thing on the outside, which you don't really want. You want your work to be, you know, as clean as possible. These are handmade tassels. These are supposed to be better than what you find in the store. Just remember that. So, because anybody can go buy a commercial tassel, and these days they're so inexpensive, it just floors me. I bought one not too long ago that I'm going to show in an embellishment video, and it was $7.99 brand new. but you want people to be able to tell. Now when you get to this part right here, it's a little tricky. When you're going on the downslope, you've got to really push it because it wants to fall downward, and you'll have these, see how it wants to go down toward the middle. I don't know what does that, gravity I suppose. And you have to really force it. Now this clear gel tacky glue gets tacky quick, which is another thing that I like. Try to keep it off your fingers and just force it down in there. If you find you don't have enough glue, you can always stop and add a little more. It takes a little bit more on these down slopes. That's one thing my students always struggled with these forms, was this beginning and then these little down slopes. Alright, so I'm going to just keep covering that with GIMP. Nice generous amount of glue, but not too thick. I don't want it seeping out. That's just a little water. Keep my paintbrush from getting too sticky. See, if you use the spray adhesive, you can see where it can start to be a mess. I've used it, I tend to use it, if I'm going to use the glue, I'll use it on a form that doesn't have a lot of complicated crevices in it, because it does set up fast. And when it gets on your fingers, then it starts to get on the form. It's just not, it's not for me. If you're gonna, you know, if you were making a lot of these and you wanted to work very, very fast and you were really good at it, I suppose, you know, you could try that. Okay, so the cool part is that the little down slope does end, and we can put the glue a little farther down now because we're going to be able to work fairly fast at this point. So I'm going to make it easier on myself so I don't have to keep stopping. And now these layers just become self-supporting. And we'll just go around and around. Try to get them nice and even. You don't want them to be all like on a slope. You want them to be pretty parallel. You know, like a, you don't really want them to look like a parking garage where they're slanted too much. This is a form that I made. You have to be fairly creative about forms, but there's a lot of things you can do. They don't have to look like the ones in the book, because once they're covered, they all work pretty well. And like I explained in the materials video, I've had some turned for my own use because I was doing custom tassels for people, and I guess selling them, as it were. It's not my favorite thing to do, but so, you know, I was able to get some different forms. These are little forms that I use for key tassels, but you may not want to invest as much as I have in those forms as of right now, when you're still deciding. And most turners, one of the books says, you know, take these patterns and take them to a wood turner and they will turn them for you. No, they will not. Wood turners that have computerized lathes are interested in large projects, large quantity projects rather, because it takes considerable time to set up that lathe. And unless you want to pay $100 or more for one form, it's probably a good idea for you to just be creative at first. And you know, if you're gonna, you know, if this takes off for you and you want to be the one that makes custom tassels and somebody wants to pay you $1,000 for a tassel, then go to the wood turner, have fun. But just be forewarned that it's not like, I don't know that whoever the person that I'm not going to say who says that in their book must know a wood turner, or in England they must be willing to do all kinds of things, but in America it's just not the way it works. So everybody's, you know, in it to make it for themselves, and you don't want to waste your time. Oh, paintbrush thingy in there. Little hair, not gonna hurt anything. You can be fairly sloppy with this. Just not too much glue is the main thing. Okay, almost done. You'll want to go. You know, some people like to go, you know, really far down because they're perfectionists, or you know, just feel like that makes for a better quality piece. And they are probably right. I kind of usually play it by ear, depending on how much GIMP I have and how much I think that's going to show. I'm going to go to probably about maybe 3 or 4 more rounds, because it's going to have a rough on it, which means that probably up to there is not even going to show. But sometimes you don't even know what you're going to end up doing. And so at this point, it may be better for you to just go ahead and finish the entire form. Again, it starts to slope downward. That's not a fun place to be. But with some skill and some practice, you see I can kind of, at this point, kind of just zip right through it. It's not as frustrating as it seems. Since Aleene's came out with this new glue is just wonderful. I just can't say enough about it as far as, you know, crafting, adding beads and embellishments. It's strong, very strong glue, clear, stays clear, I think. Check back with me in 10 years, we'll see. I'm an egg artist too, as I mentioned, and very disappointed in some of the epoxies out there. They go on, they say, oh, it's clear. Well, guess what? I've been doing egg art for 10 years. It's not clear. If that epoxy was showing at the time, it's yellow now. And that's not good. It makes me kind of upset, because when you sell a piece of artwork, you want that person to be able, whoever buys it from you, you want them to be able to enjoy it for many years. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop here, because I think I have enough on here. I know I'm going to be putting a rough on this one. And like I said, if you're not sure, you may want to keep going till you get all the way down into the crease. Now this bottom part will definitely have the skirt over it, so you don't need to do that part. And the first few times that I taught this class, it was funny because people would go home to finish this, and then they'd come back and the whole thing, even down into the hole, would be covered with GIMP, and I would think to myself, gosh, I really need to mention that they don't have to do that. Okay. With your embroidery scissors, don't use your real good ones on tassel making. Buy yourself a cheap pair that are sharp enough to cut thread, but don't use, you know, your Hardanger scissors for goodness sake. Okay, there we are, all covered with GIMP. I will see you back here to make a skirt.